Hey guys, welcome to Goa. Welcome to the first ride of the Goan Classic 350. And in case you're wondering just how many motorcycles Royal Enfield is going to make using the same platforms, their answer is as many as they can, especially when they come out this good. So this is the very first bobber that we have seen from Royal Enfield, especially on the J platform. And nothing drives home the bobber intent than these Ape style handlebars, which I think look really, really cool. And then you also have a really low seat, 750 mm, the lowest seat you'll find on a Royal Enfield motorcycle. And that's primarily down to the 16-inch rear wheel. The front is the same, 19 inches, but the rear is 16 inches. And if you look down, that's the other thing which really stands out. After the handlebar, you notice the tires with the white walls. They look really, really cool. This is the very first motorcycle from Royal Enfield in the J platform which gets tubeless spoke wheels, which obviously suddenly make the bobber that much more attractive. There are also other touches, like you have the slash cut silencer, you have the chop front fender, the rear fender is mounted on the swing arm. So you have all LED lighting that we have seen on the Classic 350. The levers continue to be adjustable, which is a neat touch. You, of course, have these different colorways which have been inspired by Goa and its vibrant culture. As this is based primarily on the Classic 350, it does borrow a lot of the same components. Like for example, the front is exactly the same. You have the same 130 mm of travel. But at the back, you have a little more suspension travel, 105 mm to be more specific, mainly to accommodate the new rear wheel. But that should hopefully also help with the ride quality. You have this floating single seat, but you do get attachable, detachable pillion seat if you want to ride this motorcycle with a pillion. Then you also have the same exact braking components. Of course, at the heart of it all is the same 349cc engine which you have come to love, makes the same power. So in terms of the mapping, it's exactly the same 20 horses, the same 27 Newton meters of torque. You have the 5-speed transmission. Also in terms of wheelbase, it is a little bit longer. It's 1400 millimeters, 10 mm more than the Classic 350. Even the sprocketing has changed a little bit, but again, that's again to take into account the different tire size. But in terms of the overall gear ratios, that will be quite similar to the Classic 350. But I think these ergonomics are definitely going to play a key role in the riding experience of this motorcycle, which I cannot wait to find out. So let's go for a spin in the narrow, beautiful bylanes of Goa and see if this one fits in as well as it looks. So the first thing you notice on this, as always, is the beautiful 349cc engine, which continues to shine on. It's such a sweet mill. It's so refined. It sounds beautiful. And the way it just chugs along with all that low-end grunt. It's almost difficult for me now to imagine riding in Goa on anything but a Royal Enfield, mainly because of an engine like that. But the one thing I was worried about was the low 750 mm seat height, especially for my 5'11" frame. But surprisingly, the changes they have made to the rider's triangle meant that I actually sat on it quite well. It was surprisingly a lot more accommodating. I'm not sure how it would fit you if you're 6 feet or taller. Maybe then this would feel a little more cramped. But for me at least, it was really not too bad. And again, we only did about 60 or 70 kilometers during the entire day. So I can't really vouch for how good the comfort is over longer distances. But at least for commuting, this was surprisingly a lot more comfortable than I thought it would be. Because the seat too is surprisingly well padded. And then you of course also have the option of going for a JME seat, which I'm told has even more padding, which should make it even more comfortable. The good thing about this is even though you have a low seat height, you still have 170 mm of ground clearance to scale the tall speed breakers. They are like some of the tallest speed breakers I've encountered here in Goa. ground clearance was never really an issue. But I was a little bit disappointed with the ride quality, especially coming from the Classic 350, which we know is one of the best ride qualities, especially on a Royal Enfield. And because this is heavily based on the Classic 350, we're expecting kind of the same. But now, even though this has a little bit more travel, they had to account for the heavier load in terms of the heavier tire, the heavier wheels, and that's why the damping has changed. Now, don't get me wrong, when you're riding above 40 kilometers an hour and you encounter bad roads, that's not a problem. It just absorbs everything in its wake really, really well. But it's the slow speed stuff when you're going 20, 30 kilometers an hour on a really bad stretch of road. And if you hit like a hard edge, you can feel all those undulations go straight onto your back. It's not really bad, but it's definitely not as plush as what the Classic 350 is. And another thing that I was a little bit worried about was when I went through the spec sheet and the recommended tire pressures were 22 up front and 25 at the back, even with a pillion. And I genuinely thought it was a mistake. But that's mainly because of the special tire which Royal Enfield has come up with, which has the special construction, which gives you a little bit more cushion, and which is why you can run even lower than standard tire pressures. And even when I was riding the motorcycle, I did not really feel any weird or anything different from a normal conventional tire. This is the first motorcycle from Royal Enfield, especially on the J platform, to get tubeless spoke wheels. And they are a godsend, especially in a country like ours, which doesn't have the best infrastructure, and punctures are still a problem. And especially now, when even the highway guys are so used to fixing tubeless tires that they don't even want to touch tires with tubes. So I think this is going to be a huge factor in the success of this motorcycle, not to mention also the way it looks. And me personally, I think I identify more with this than the Classic 350, even though I love the green and chrome Classic 350, the way it looks. I think this is more of my style. It looks so beautiful, especially in the matte black. I know I'm boring, but it just looks so badass. Now, taking all of these changes into account, of course, the pricing is going to be impacted. This is definitely going to be a little bit higher. I really hope that this stays as accessible as the Classic 350 is, and I'm pretty sure that this will have really strong potential to be just as successful as the Classic 350.